Hello, welcome to the Spiritual View. It's just us three today, but we're going to be talking about reincarnation.
I'm Christina.
And I'm Christine.
And I'm Carlene.
And so we're just going to briefly introduce what the topic of reincarnation is, and then share some personal stories and beliefs about reincarnation. When you're an intuitive person, you pick up on very interesting things from people, and sometimes you see things like them as a different person in a past life, or maybe you see a future version of them, or maybe you pick up on a pattern that they've had for a while and it feels older than just this lifetime. But reincarnation basically is the concept that our soul goes on. It doesn't disappear when our body disappears. It continues on, and it chooses to reincarnate into either this lifetime or into another lifetime somewhere else, depending on what your beliefs are. But the main commonality of belief around reincarnation is that the soul is choosing to reincarnate in a physical way here, and possibly in other ways in other places.
Yeah, reincarnation can get pretty in depth. There's so many different theories, and across different religions across the world, they view it and have their own perspective on it. I mean, back to the it's just been so long. Christianity, like Buddhism, Hinduism, it's just, there's a lot of cultures that view incarnation in some way. There's a correlation between all of the cultures and religions, which I find very interesting, because everybody has their own perspective on how it happened, but it's still there, it still exists, and everybody still believes in some form of it.
Yeah. And it's definitely something that you can't really ignore when you start doing readings, because I think it does come up quite a bit. It's also a really big learning opportunity for people to understand why they're in certain relationships, or why they chose the family that they decided to come into. There's a lot of threads that kind of tie everything together as to why our circumstances are the way that we chose them to be.
Yeah, and there's like two different theories of time, right? So there's the belief that time is linear, and there's past, and there's present, and there's future, and there's belief that everything's happening now. And something we can't really prove in like scientific ways right now, and with what we have. But the theory that of everything happening now is saying that all of the lifetimes that we see from the past are actually part of us living in a different time, and that we're learning and expanding through multiple lives in multiple places all at once. And so you understand that is not a very simple topic to talk about. But I wanted to just kind of explain that there's those two different viewpoints of everything happening right now, and then people that see linear time. My personal belief is that time in the physical reality is an illusion, that time, once you leave this physical reality, is there is no time, that everything is kind of happening now. It just feels much more expansive and connected in ways that I think we can't really fathom or understand
our human mind
here.
Yeah.
So, and as a medium, I feel like when I pick up on spirit, especially if they're just like a more advanced spirit, I can almost feel how fresh they are from like pure love energy, and it's like I almost transport there a little bit, and it's just this feeling of, we're eternal, we're one, and we have free will and choice everywhere we go. Like whether we're in the physical reality or we're like on the other side and the other dimensions that there are, we're still living through choice. That our eternal soul's purpose is just to create an experience. And that's kind of where, different interpretations of reincarnation come in. People have different ideas. Some people believe that we reincarnate so that we can learn and grow here. Some people believe it's just more like we're here just to experience, specifically emotion. For some reason, people believe that this physical reality is unique in the way that we have emotions, and we choose to come here so that we can experience those emotions. There's also a whole other belief that we choose to come into this physical reality versus staying in the all love, right? Why wouldn't we stay in like just epic love energy? Because without a contrasting energy to feel, we can't really experience it. If love is all we knew, we wouldn't really know how to describe or know what it feels like unless we have experienced the opposite of it. And so we choose to come here to feel the contrast of good and bad, what we call good and bad, so that we can really feel the good from a place of knowing and emotions. That's kind of what I believe, that we're here just to experience what we are and who we are. And the learning part, I feel like the universe scientifically is expanding, and we are too. We're expanding, and our consciousness is expanding. So there's just this growth that happens. And so part of our reincarnation is growing and expanding and an awakening to become more aware of what we don't see and more aware of the other dimensions that we're separate from, or we believe we're separate from. And I think that's what's happening. That's my belief.
Yep.
And I can tell stories about that after.
I feel the same way along the same lines. I don't really believe in time in that sense. I definitely believe that I believe in reincarnation. I believe that our soul comes back to develop and to experience and just to grow and evolve, like you said, soul growth. And that each lifetime you kind of come in with a preconception. Yeah, you come in with a knowingness of what this life is going to be like and what you're here to accomplish. Because you make that decision, it's part of your free will, like you said, and then you come in, you experience it, and it's very interesting. It still kind of blows my mind a little bit, because my human mind still is just kind of like, like there's just so much about it, and there's so much interconnectedness, and there's just so much that our minds are not ever really going to be able to explain or understand, and so it's very interesting doing a lot of the past life regressions and everything, and with you when I did that session, and just learning about these things and how they connected to my life in this moment, and how I can use those experiences and those past life experiences to continue to develop and be on the path that I'm on right now. Everything's just interconnected, and I find it very interesting. And I also believe in karma as well. I believe in the law of karma and everything, and so I feel like that definitely has a lot to do and feeds into reincarnation in a lot of ways as well. So that's my opinion.
So I was going to say that I feel like the school, the earth is like a school,
Mm-hmm.
and our contracts are kind of like the course that we choose to take, and the course description. You get to pick and choose what you want to come here to accomplish, and it's something that we can always change, but it's nice to have that context of like, there's unfinished work from our past lives, or something, something happened where we couldn't complete something, and so we come back into another life, and we still have a little bit of that remaining,
Mm-hmm.
and we try and finish it up in this life, where we have, I don't know how you say, like a lot of things we want to tick off while we're here, because like you said, this is a place where you can feel these emotions and get a lot of things accomplished that we can't do, and
You need the human experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's this playground where we can have all these experiences and learning, and it's these kind of like past lives that kind of color, like, this is why I put myself in this situation, because in reality we choose and create everything that is in our lives.
Do you think that's what personality is? You know how like you can see personality in babies. They're different. They're just different.
And
it's like their temperaments are different. Where does that come from? Why are they so different? What is personality?
Working with kids, you can see that there's still a little bit of a remnant of their past life. Like they have that personality, but I would say like around 4 or 5, definitely by first grade, they have a different personality come through, which is the personality that they're taking on in this life. But before that, I think they have a lot more of like their mannerisms, and maybe things that they say might be a little bit funnier because they're kind of drawing still from their past life, which they still remember.
Yeah. So what do you both believe about like why do you think that we come in not remembering all our past lives? What are your beliefs about that?
It's funny you should ask that, because I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I feel like that's the only way that you're going to come in with an unbiased opinion and to learn the lessons that you're here to learn, and experience the emotions that you're here to experience. If you come in with the idea of like, I know exactly how my life's going to play out, then you're not really taking in the whole lesson and really learning as much as you can, and allowing your soul to grow and develop as much as it can.
Yeah.
You're kind of cheating in a way. It's like if you're going to go take a test and you already kind of know all, like
you have the
cliff notes, or you have the answer sheet, like, oh, I'm going to take this road at this time and everything's going to be okay. It's like, no, you're literally flying by the whole point.
Do you both think it's possible that a highly evolved person can come in and remember all of their past lives?
Yes, I do believe that.
Definitely.
Or that you can spontaneously do that?
I don't think it's necessarily a highly evolved person, but I think it's definitely possible. There's like
there's children that remember things,
yeah.
And I do hypnosis, past life regression. We can tap into that at any time. But what I mean is do you believe that someone could spontaneously remember all of their lives or all the things we're living right now?
I think if you wanted to,
yeah,
you could.
Because I mean, in the situation that past life regressions, being able to tap in, once you're in a space mentally, physically, spiritually, and you're able to really just kind of dig down and just be centered with yourself and be connected to source and to your higher self, then I think, heck yeah, anything's possible.
Yeah.
I think for sure that's possible.
I don't think that's anything you specifically always want to do, because
yeah.
what you're doing is you're coming into this life trying to write a new chapter.
Right.
You don't want to be.
But okay, so I believe that we right now, as we're evolved as a species right now, we've come into this lifetime not remembering our past because we're not at the evolution of a place where we can be unattached from that, where we won't carry the burden of pain to us now, because as a species, as a human species right now on this planet, we tend to have attachment to our past, have attachment to the pains and hurts, have attachment to things that if we had evolved to a point of unattachment, we could come knowing all of our past lives and it would still give us that clean slate, but we would need that kind of consciousness to do it. So I believe that if we came in with that kind of consciousness, and the collective consciousness kind of has to be up to that point too, then we could start reincarnating and remember the past lives, because it wouldn't hinder our evolution anymore. That's kind of what I believe. Also, I wanted to ask, what are your beliefs about people's deaths? Do you believe that a death is destined to happen at a certain time, or maybe there's multiple ways death can happen? Death can happen like pre-contracted at a certain date and however way it happens, or a death can be pre-contracted to happen a certain way at a certain time.
What comes to my mind is that awful movie Final Destination, which I really never truly watched, but I understood, I didn't like the movie. No offense out there, but I didn't like the movie. But it reminds me of that, where people cheated death in a way, but yet things still caught up to them and things still happen. I feel like that's that's true in a lot of ways. Like maybe your free will totally comes into play with that kind of stuff. Like there's a million different things that can happen, a million different paths that you can take depending on the decisions that you make in your life. So of course there's going to be multiple ways that this can happen. But the whole point of you being here still remains the same. That still is consistent. The lessons that you're here to learn. So no matter what, in the end, everything's going to happen the way it's meant to be or the way it could be. But those lessons are still learned no matter what the outcome is. Does that make sense? Yeah, I feel like it doesn't really matter. It's just going to happen, and you're going to.
So
it's meant to be that way because that's the way it happened.
Like it's meant to be around a certain time, not necessarily a certain date, but like around a certain time.
Maybe not. Yeah. I don't think you can ever say anything.
When you pick up on spirit, do you get a sense of it was just like their time?
Sometimes I've had people come through where they're like, I feel like I didn't have enough time, but that was because they just feel like they had unfinished business. But that's also a part of like
their human personality.
No, it's also part of their soul and the stuff that they're working through. Okay. They're not finished, so they're probably going to reincarnate and still go through a lot of the same stuff. And so like I feel like in that ways, but 9 times out of 10, the people that I've connected, the souls that I've connected with, they come through with the sense of peace and it was supposed to happen this way. Like there's a few situations like suicides and things like that where they come through and that was their own will. It was meant to happen, unfortunately, in that way, but there's a lot of regret because they could have chosen different ways to do things, so I don't know, but I feel like most of the time they come through with a sense of like, I lived a good part of my life, or
like I heard something in a book that I'm reading that challenged my mind, and I'm not quite sure what I believe, but it was saying that there are no victims, which I believe that, and in so saying that, like when children, the worst case scenario, children dying, right? Why do children die? Children having illness and dying at a young age. That at some level they invited that, they attracted that, or someone that's murdered at some level they gave permission for that, is what this was saying.
I would say that like there's so many different situations that happen, and it's not necessarily like they chose to have a disease or anything, but that was a role that they decided to play. So as a learning experience for the people around them, like it's like the contract of.
It wasn't necessarily about them in that moment. It was about them helping their loved ones in that moment learn a lesson, or which I definitely think can happen.
See, it's like when you tap into spirit, you get some of this information as a medium. Like you can kind of like see some of this stuff. You see pieces here and there, and it's not always. I don't think it's always like the same. I think it's so complicated to just like even put it into words.
But I also think that sometimes people pass and it was a complete surprise. Like it wasn't like they weren't planning on it on their higher self level, and it came out of nowhere because it was somebody else's, like, I don't know.
You think someone else's vibration can overcome your own and attract
I think
death?
That's what the whole free will thing of this planet and plane is about, is that like anything can happen. Sometimes we choose it and sometimes we don't.
And depending on your free will and the decisions that you've made, it's brought you that place in your life.
Yeah, I feel like I've been going through a lot of mental stuff after my Reiki Master attunement and really like trying to wrap my head around these big topics. And I feel like I've shifted recently about the belief about that. I was more in alignment with what you're saying, but now I feel like I believe that we resonate at a certain frequency, and everything that we see in the outside world and everything that happens to us from the outside world, we're creating as within, so without. So like whatever is going on within you, the world is a mirror for you to see that.
I believe that too.
And so in that respect, even if you when I say you chose, that doesn't always mean consciously. It could be subconsciously. Your subconscious beliefs about things or your subconscious vibration. When you could attract death in a traumatic way, and that it would have still been your free will and choice.
No, I think that it could be both. That you can both have that attraction of like creating everything and also being not the victim, because
it's funny that we're talking about this because my grandma got hit by a school bus yesterday. I sound so weird saying that. It's like this freak accident, and she's alive right now, but I've been thinking about this specific topic, like, is that something that is predestined to happen because it's her time and this is the vehicle for that? Or is this something that she attracted because she's in, that vibrational space? Or is that something that someone else's vibration overcame that situation, the bus driver or a kid in the bus, just it happened to her and she's a victim. And it's like all these different points of views you can have. And as a medium, you see people suffering and grieving and asking these questions. They want answers to these questions. They want to know why this happened to their loved one. And as a medium and as a spiritual person and as an intuitive, there's no definite answers. All we can really go off of is what we have experienced and what resonates as true for us. But even then, that changes. Like, I'm changing. My belief is changing. I feel like I'm tuning into my grandma and seeing what's going on with her, and I feel like her will to live is dissipating, and she's wanting to leave this world, and this is the vehicle for that. And so that in some ways she did create that for herself. And I'm just like, why would you choose such a traumatic way? But then I have my guides tell me, well, we see good and bad, but really everything is God. Everything is divine. So even a bus hitting someone is a divine action. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what the hell that means, but that's what I keep getting from my guides. And I'm just really trying to wrap my head around it.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you're also sitting with your human emotions too, and your human mind trying to figure this out. That's us that's our ego trying to figure it out, and really there's just some things maybe we're not meant to know or understand or figure out. It just is,
I do know that it feels more empowering to look at it as, this is just her way of doing what she needs to do for herself right now versus, someone else did this to her and she's not wanting any of it to happen. I feel like that's really disempowering. So I feel like the more empowering way feels more true for me.
I feel more like it was an opportunity for her to reflect and see what direction she'd like to go. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
I like that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's always choice, right? We always have choice. We always have will. So our free will.
Such a huge topic to talk about.
We can go forever.
We might talk about it again soon. It's maybe a different facet of it, so we can kind of break it down because it's such a big topic. Do we feel complete?
One thing I want to mention, if you have kids out there, they say they're so close to source, right? They're newly in this world. I encourage you to ask questions and to kind of poke around and see what you can find out with your kids. And some of it can just be their imagination, but I wouldn't take anything too lightly.
Like what kind of question would you ask? I'm just wondering.
Do you remember being in mommy's belly? Do you remember the day you were born? Do you remember before you came into this world? Like that kind of stuff. Like it's pretty interesting. And over the years, I've been trying to talk with my oldest. Yeah, I've tried to talk with my oldest. He's 4, and so he's really able to talk now, but it's also further away from source. So I'm like really kind of pushing a little bit because I'm like, I really want to try. This is my chance, right? And he says he remembers being in my belly. He mentioned a couple things about when I was delivering him and he didn't want to come out, which he was stuck and he did not want to come out, which is very true. So, some of it feels like he really is present and those are his memories, and then there's other times where he's like, when I was bigger, he says, when I was bigger, I lived on Mars with my friends, and could totally be his imagination, but he's also 4, so he doesn't really know that much about Mars and all this kind of stuff yet. So his interest has always led somewhere else, not really with the solar system. For him to know those words and to know some of these things, it makes you think like, whoa, he could really be from Mars. Who knows?
Yeah, there's tons
or a place that looks like Mars.
Go on YouTube. We're on YouTube right now. Search reincarnation. There is like a researcher
really interesting stuff
that has gone around the world to cases where children were really accurately depicting a life that they had.
Yeah.
that was so recent that they can actually go back to the family that's still alive from that person and confirm the details that these children
It's crazy
are saying.
what they do.
So there's a lot of evidence for it, and it's happening more and more and more.
But I encourage you to do that if you have children or a niece or nephew or something. Like, it's really
I
interesting.
have not done that.
And this is your chance. This is your chance to do that, because once they're bigger, our human mind takes over, and until they're ready, until they choose, they might not be connected to that anymore. So
That's what you have hypnosis for.
that too. You can always go do a hypnotherapy
Or just really deep
session.
meditation.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
And we have a guest speaker.
We have a guest speaker coming for our next video. Her name's Linda Grindle. She's a medium. She's really funny, and she's really down to earth. And so she's gonna show us a good time and talk about mediumship and her experiences. So,
and then we'll ask really fun questions.
Yeah, we'll ask
for
questions.
you. So
It may be a 2-part interview, depending on how long it is. So be on the lookout for that. So
Thank you.
thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.